Whew, today I watched a sick, disgusting, vile movie that will surely go down as one of the most disturbing titles of 2022. Anyway, that was Disney's Pinocchio remake. Now let's talk about Barbarian. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I had no interest originally in this movie. What really captured my interest, though, was the concept. I've had some pretty bad experiences with Airbnbs. I've been to a couple of different locations, and every time that I settle into an Airbnb, I feel like I could get attacked at any moment. Someone could easily just come in and do whatever they want to. So, yeah, Airbnbs are pretty unnerving to begin with. So, the concept of this movie definitely got my attention because I watched the trailer, and it looked like a pretty standard thriller. It looked from what I could tell of the plot, you have Bill Skarsgård, as this guy who, rents out this B&B, but it turns out that this woman played by Georgina Campbell has also rented out this B&B, so there seems to have been some sort of misunderstanding, so he invites her in, and you definitely get some creepy vibes from him in the trailer, so, best guess, he probably ends up being some sort of psychotic killer. Bill Skarsgård, as many of you know, is already a modern horror legend because he portrayed Pennywise the Clown in the two most recent It movies. And I just gotta say, it was really good seeing him again because I find him an incredibly skilled actor, and Georgina Campbell as well. She's done a lot of television work, but I was definitely excited to see her as well. And I just have to say this, the reviews for this film, came pouring in, and critics were hailing it as a modern horror masterpiece. They were saying such things as, this is a shocking movie, it goes in so many unexpected directions, and it's probably going to change the horror genre as we know it, and, that definitely interested me. I mean, how could that not interest someone like me, a weirdo who has seen literally hundreds upon hundreds of horror movies? So, with great anticipation, I reserved my ticket at the local AMC theater. I sat down in my cozy recliner chair, and I guess I expected a little bit more.
Are you crazy? Is that your problem?
Now, the first 40 minutes were arguably the best part of this movie. In fact, it felt very much like a stage play. You have these two actors, they're in this isolated location, which, by the way, I love horror movies that take place in minimal settings. In this case, you have this small Airbnb location, which is in the middle of this rundown, decrepit neighborhood. It looks like your typical neighborhood in Detroit, but the banter between Bill Skarsgård and Georgina Campbell, you're not entirely sure how to feel about Bill Skarsgård at first. He seems like a normal enough guy, but he also has these weird tics. He is a bit awkward, and he does say some things that are a little creepy, but overall he seems like a pretty genuine guy. But of course, since it's Bill Skarsgård, you're just expecting him to, put on clown makeup and chase after Georgina Campbell with very, very sharp things. But of course that doesn't happen. So eventually what happens is that Georgina Campbell discovers a hidden tunnel in the basement. And let's just say that inside this tunnel lies some very disturbing stuff. Stuff that I can imagine you would encounter at a good number of B&Bs, especially here in America. In fact, I think this film is going to do for B&Bs what Jaws did for the ocean. I think people are going to have second thoughts about reserving B&Bs after watching this movie. It definitely creeped me out.
Keith?
So, things just get crazier from there, and this is the type of film that constantly reinvents itself. Every 30 minutes or so, they'll throw another twist at you, or another new character will be introduced, and again, not to get into any major spoilers, but it was cool seeing some other familiar horror faces in this movie. You have Justin Long, which, by the way, Justin Long, every time this guy appears in a horror movie, things don't turn out very well for him. In Jeepers Creepers, he literally had his eyeball stolen from him and dragged me to hell. His girlfriend literally gets dragged to hell. And in this movie, he essentially plays the same douchebag character he played in Kevin Smith's Tusk. He's like this a-hole, unlikable celebrity, and that's all I'll say about his character. It was also great seeing the vastly underrated Richard Brake. Richard Brake is one of those character actors who you recognize immediately. He played the killer of Batman's parents in Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins, and he automatically makes a movie just 10 times creepier, just being himself, because he has this very, creepy persona about him. He played a tremendous villain in Rob Zombie's 31. He was probably the best thing about that movie. He had, that sinister clown makeup on his face, and he had that tremendous opening dialogue in that movie. But he has a small part in this, so it was cool seeing some familiar horror faces, and it made me feel all giddy inside. I'm a big fan of all these actors, and they all give very, very, committed performances, I must say. So, what else did I appreciate about this movie? So the dialogue in this did feel, very realistic and natural, especially in the first 40 minutes. You have Bill Skarsgård learning more about Georgina Campbell's character. It turns out that she is partly on the run from this abusive boyfriend, who sought to control her, and he is just this guy who, ended up in the wrong place at the wrong time. So, and that's another thing that I want to bring up. This movie is mostly a commentary on toxic masculinity, and so many of these characters could have been the biggest cartoon stereotypes, especially Justin Long's character. But this script made them feel like actual people. They didn't feel like stereotypes. They didn't feel like a means for this director to push his political agenda. They felt like genuine people, which I did admire and I did appreciate. And while the director does create an effectively creepy atmosphere, there were a couple of glaring problems that got under my skin a little bit. So when Justin Long's character is first introduced, he is driving inside his car, and I don't consider this really a major spoiler, but he's having a conversation with someone over the phone, and it just sounds so phony, and his performance just feels a little forced, and you can tell that the voice you hear over the phone isn't actually live, because it's as if I were pretending to talk to someone on the phone. I would have this very forced, phony voice like, "Oh, you gotta be kidding me, man. What? What are you talking about? No way, she actually said that? Dude, that's crazy." That was the only part of the movie that just didn't feel entirely natural to me. Everything else felt pretty realistic, except for that one scene. So that was kind of a glaring problem, at least in my opinion. Also, some of the characters in this movie are set up to be very smart and resourceful, but they still end up making really, really stupid, poor decisions, and you just want to scream at them, like, what are you thinking? There's one instance where, Georgina Campbell, when she first discovers the underground tunnel, she acts like a character out of a Jordan Peele horror movie. She sees something creepy and she just goes, "Nope." No. As you've seen in the trailer, she decides to investigate this tunnel anyway, and it's like, okay, you acted smart at first, and now you're acting like a typical dumb horror movie victim. Like, what's going on here? The same thing happens to Bill Skarsgård's character. Justin Long's character, though, is intentionally stupid, so it was more forgiving, in his case. There was also this random flashback near the end of the movie, this flashback to the 1980s, and I'm wondering if this flashback was meant to be at the very start of the movie, maybe before the opening credits, because it was incredibly random, and it just killed the pacing of the movie, and, while it did, answer some questions as far as what was going on, it just came out of nowhere. So I'm wondering if the director, Zach Kreger, I wonder if he was worried if this flashback was going to give too much away, so he decided to move it to, this part of the film until, except, it kind of came out of nowhere, like I said. And the ending is kind of abrupt. I won't spoil what happens, but, let's just say that when, the ending credits started, I kind of jumped in my seat because I was a little taken aback. I thought there was going to be a little bit more story. I mean, I guess it does wrap things up in a satisfying, gory manner, but it did startle me a little bit. I thought there was going to be a little bit more to this story, which, by the way, when the primary villain is revealed, the plot does become very typical. And although there were a couple of disturbing, gross out moments, I just never felt like downright disturbed. I thought the ultimate twist was going to be a little bit more clever. You know, I read about how this film, you know, constantly throws all these surprises at you, so I thought things were going to get a bit crazier near the end, and while they do get somewhat crazy, I just thought there were going to be a couple of more turns in the storyline.
Keith!
I'd like to compare it to this year's Nope, directed by Jordan Peele. You know, the trailers for Nope made it seem as if the characters were going to go up against this UFO, you know, out in the middle of the desert, but that ended up not being the case. And, you know, for those who have seen the movie, you know that, you know, something unexpected does happen, and it's something that you weren't expecting, and you become even more engaged in the storyline because it just throws you for a loop. I don't know, guys. See, here's the thing. So, casual moviegoers might appreciate this film a little more. You know, people who haven't seen as many horror movies, you know, as someone like me, and, you know, this might be the type of film that is appreciated by diehard horror fans, but is not very well received by general audiences because it is a bit of a slow burn. I wonder if regular moviegoers are going to have the patience for it, because it's like a very long fuse, you know, and when it finally does get to the explosion, I can see some people, I don't know, I'm not really sure what to expect, from people. Are they going to like this movie? Are they going to, find it to be, very underwhelming and disappointing? I'm somewhere in the middle. I certainly didn't have a bad time at Barbarian. It was incredibly well made. It was very atmospheric. It was effectively creepy, especially in the first 40 minutes. And I'd like to end this review by spinning you a little yarn. So when I walked into the theater to see this movie, okay, so there's this older guy who works as a ticket taker at this AMC theater, and he always has. He always comes off as very sarcastic, and he always says like something very snarky whenever he scans my tickets. So, I saw him and I was waiting for him to make some sort of snarky comment, and he did, because as soon as he saw what movie I was seeing, he looked up at me with a blank expression, and after a few seconds of just studying my soul, he said, "I'm kind of worried about you now." What I really wanted to do, I wanted to quote Scar from The Lion King, just look him in the eye and say, "You have no idea. My voice just cracked." Also, this movie was #1 at the box office last weekend, so I'm definitely not the only weird horror fan out there. But anyway, guys, those are my overall thoughts on Barbarian. Like I said, I was expecting just a little bit more from it. It certainly wasn't a waste of time. Maybe go in with your expectations in check. Don't expect, this revolutionary, game-changing horror movie. It's a decent, well-made film. And, it's another decent, well-made horror film released in 2022. We've gotten a lot of those this year, including X, The Black Phone, and even the most recent Scream movie. They've all been very decent. Well, what did you guys think of Barbarian? Did it live up to your expectations? Were you expecting more from it like I was? Please let me know down in the comments, guys. I would love to hear your thoughts. I always love talking about horror movies with you guys, and that leads me to another topic. So, Round the Clock Frights will soon have a new home, because me and my wife are actually moving out of this house. We've lived here for the past 3 years. We've made a number of videos with friends here in this very spot, as a matter of fact. And some big changes are going to be made soon. We'll be in an entirely different location, but of course I'll continue to make videos for you guys. It's been an absolute blast, and thank you so much for joining me on this journey. I can't wait to continue it with you. I do have something big in the works. I came up with a project. It's probably going to be my big project for Halloween this year, so I'm very excited to put that together. But thank you so much again, Boils and Ghouls. This has been a tremendous journey, and while it's certainly not ending, a part of me does feel sad that, things are going to be changing soon. But thank you so much again, guys. Please see Barbarian. Tell me what you thought. You know, Halloween is just around the corner, and of course, that's the most wonderful time of the year. I can't wait. Thank you again, guys. You've all been terrific, and have a scary night. Take care, and maybe don't rent out any B&B soon, because you might regret it. Yeah. Have a good night, guys. Bye.